Hello and welcome to another episode of the relaunched Her Game 2 podcast. I'm your host and my name is Clayton. And today we have a very special guest. For those watching on YouTube, you can see him. He needs no introduction, but he's a Birmingham legend. He's made over 300 appearances for the club, netted over 60 goals. Lukas Jutkiewicz, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm very well, Clayton. How are you doing?
Doing good, doing good. We should timestamp this. We're 1 week out from the start of the season. We're hoping this will go live just before Birmingham take to Reading. You're obviously hosting Reading to open the season, so we're hoping it will go live around then. How's summer been for you? Have you been watching much of the Euros, Olympics, Copa America?
Yeah, it's been a good summer. It was nice to have a little bit of downtime when the season finishes. Obviously, didn't finish the way that we wanted to, but important chance to just reset. Clear the mind, allow your body to rest up a little bit, and kind of enjoy some time with the family, really. Because obviously during the season, you have to sacrifice a lot to give your all to the cause, and sometimes your family gets left behind a little bit. So it's making sure that you get a chance to catch up with them and have some good quality downtime together. So and I watched a little bit of the Euros with my family, and we really enjoyed that. We obviously the England game didn't pan out the way we wanted it to, but I allowed them to stay up late for that one.
Nice,
To take the hit the next day at school. I think they were a little bit tired and a little bit disappointed, but I didn't want to miss the opportunity in case we'd won.
Well, of course, yeah, it could have potentially been once in a lifetime, but yeah, hopefully third time lucky with the England national team for the next tournament. Pre-season, you obviously mentioned last season didn't go the way you would have liked at Birmingham. What's the mood like in the camp at the minute? And obviously, it's a new manager, new chapter potentially. How's the mood at the club at the minute?
Yeah, I think the mood of the club over not just the playing staff, but around the stadium and the owners, the investors is really optimistic. It's been well documented that they're investing a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of expertise into pushing this club back to where we want it to be and beyond, really. So in a strange sense, it's not often you see a club getting relegated and there being so much positivity and optimism around the club, and that's through the players and the fans and the staff. So I truly believe that it's exciting times ahead for the football club. We've had to take a step back, but with our new manager, new signings, fresh faces in the building, I think it's going to be an exciting season and hopefully the start of a really positive journey for the club.
Yeah, and just to echo that, I think one thing that I actually read was that there was record season ticket sales this season as well, which I think for most clubs that would be unheard of, kind of dropping down a division. And to add to the excitement about the new chapter, you've obviously penned a new contract. Congratulations! So that takes you through to next summer. And was that a no-brainer for you? Was there any other interest from outside?
Yeah, I think it was important to have a couple of weeks where you just take stock and reflect and see where you are with your career and where you want to be, and obviously family plays a big part in that as well. So I thought about it. There were clubs in contact, but for me, when it was clear that Birmingham wanted to do something, wanted to continue my time here, it was a no-brainer for me. I didn't like the way that the season finished and felt there was unfinished business there, and we're really settled as a family in the area, so that always helps as well.
Oh, that's lovely to hear. And we'll talk a little bit more about Birmingham specifically a bit later. But just before we get into that, you've had an amazing career. And like I said, you've made over 300 appearances for Birmingham, but you've played in every division in England and the SPL. Would you mind telling myself and the listeners a bit more about your kind of professional journey, how you actually got into professional football and some key moments along the way that made you the player that you are today?
So I started off. It was actually a next door neighbour that his older brother played for the local team, and they told him that they were setting up a team for, I think it would have been maybe under sevens at this point. And I just went along. I wasn't actually massively into football at that point. It wasn't a huge part of our family dynamic. Nobody in the family was particularly interested in football. So, but my friend, took me along to these sort of trials, you might call it, and I just really enjoyed it straight away. I loved it, and I just wanted to do more and more. And yeah, just continued playing and loved it, and it's something that's continued to this day. And yeah, so that was the start really, and of the addiction, you might call it.
That's amazing. Yeah, I find it so interesting. So I'm a football lover, and I always hear about some professionals. I'm an Arsenal fan, so I hear about Ben White, who kind of famously doesn't like football, supposedly. And when I hear of players like that, and like yourself, who were just so talented that you go to an under sevens trial and you just happen to be one of the best players there and make it, I find it incredible. It's yeah, very admirable to see where you've kind of taken yourself from there. I want to talk a little bit around Her Game 2. So for people that don't know, you're the player ambassador for Her Game 2 at Birmingham. What is it? Not what is it? Where did you hear about Her Game 2 initially, and how did you get involved?
So yeah, initially, I mean, so Emily Drakely is obviously she's a Birmingham fan, so she's been in and around the football club even before this campaign had started. She was initially met her when she was doing her dissertation actually, and was doing some research into football players and their mindsets. So yeah, so already knew about her, and then she came into the training ground and was. She gave us a really impressive presentation about what she was trying to achieve with Her Game 2, and I noticed that there was no ambassador for Birmingham, and I thought it was crazy, really, considering she's a fan, she knows the club, she's been in and around it. So afterwards, I just said, look, how can we get involved? How can we support it? I think it's such an important thing. We've got such a wonderful sport that it can only be better that when it's available to all and it's accepted by all. I think it makes for a better game. And so yes, she invited me to be a part of the journey and part of the team.
Oh, that's amazing. And I'm always conscious when we're doing these episodes, there may be a few listeners that are brand new here that don't actually know about Her Game 2. So for those people that are new here, Her Game 2 is a not-for-profit organization that was set up by a few female supporting fans a few years ago, with back then the objective of eradicating sexism in football and making football a sport for all, hence the name Her Game 2. Fast forward to now, and Her Game 2 is partnered with 73 of the 92 football clubs in England, partnered with a lot of the clubs in France in Ligue 1, and on International Women's Day actually had all of the support from all of the Ligue 1 and the second division clubs as well. So it's amazing what's going on, and it's only progressed as well with players like yourself who've kind of taken that initiative to try and get involved, use your platform to actually promote what's going on. With that in mind, is there anything in particular in your life that has kind of been an inspiration in you wanting to get involved in these things? I know you've got a wife, you've got a daughter. Is there any particular role models that has made you want to get involved in this in particular?
Yeah, well, certainly in my family, like you said there, my wife, my daughter, and also my son. I want him to be involved in a sport that's inclusive for all. But growing up, it was my mum and my four sisters. That was our family dynamic. So I think from an early part of my life, I had some really great female role models, and yeah, my sisters are into sport. I've seen how important it has been to sort of shape them and help with their social dynamics, the problem solving, the working in groups, these sorts of social things that are so important. And a lot of that has come from particularly team sports. They play a lot of volleyball and a lot of netball, and it's I can see how it's given them so much confidence in their everyday life. That I just think that it's so crucial, and it's fun as well.
Yeah, amazing. And with your sisters, have you ever heard anything from them in terms of discriminatory comments towards them when they're playing or anything? Because I know, which we'll touch on, in the football world, specifically in England, unfortunately, as great as it is the job that Her Game 2 are doing, it's born out of some horrible behavior that exists, right? So have your sisters ever experienced anything like that?
Not that they've let on to me. No, I mean, it does seem to be, and of course, it's not wholly to do with football, is it? But it does. There does seem to be something about football that people almost want to take possession of, that it's theirs and theirs alone, and that does seem to be very specific to football in this country, unfortunately. So I know that when they're playing volleyball and netball, they're perhaps aren't at those sorts of pressures that come along with it.
Yeah.
So from their point of view, no, I haven't heard anything like that, but I do wonder if they'd have chosen a different sport, a different avenue, whether that would have been the case.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I don't know what it is about football in particular, and I don't really have stats to back that up, but I would agree. I think football is definitely the sport where I kind of experience most of the discriminatory behavior and stuff. As a footballer, when you're on the pitch and kind of in that flow state, are you aware? Can you hear some of the comments going on?
No, none at all, to be honest. No, and sometimes that's helpful because I don't hear the comments directed at the players either, because you're just focusing on what you're trying to do. So I think that's why this is so important, also because some people may just not be aware of it. It might not be that they are the type of person that's possessive about the game, but it might just be they haven't understood that some of the challenges that particularly females trying to come into football stadiums might have. And Emily talked when she presented to us at the football club some of the things that she's had to deal with, some of the hurdles she's had to overcome just to come and enjoy the sport that she loves. And I think it's a real shame, and it's just I think it's so important to open people's eyes and make them aware that it isn't as easy for some people just to buy a ticket and walk through a turnstile and watch the team that they love.
100%. And just to kind of add some more context on that, so at Her Game 2, we've got the ability where if someone is in the stands, if they're online, wherever you may be, and you experience some discriminatory behavior, comments you don't agree with, you can actually send in reports to Her Game 2, and they've got ambassadors for all the different clubs that take that on and deal with it. And at Birmingham, like any other club, there are some discriminatory comments that get heard, and I won't go and read through all of them, but to summarize, one of the ones came in from a report in the Leicester versus Birmingham game, and there was lots of abuse towards Jamie Vardy's wife. And one of the female fans that actually reported that it got to the point where the abuse was so bad that she actually had to leave the game. There was another one where there was a 15-year-old girl in the stand, who's an aspiring referee, and she could hear loads of abuse towards a female referee, and that put her off. And imagine, as a 15-year-old aspiring to be a referee, you're in that professional environment and you can see the abuse being held at the actual referee. It can only dishearten you and really put you off. So using your platform and being an actual professional football player, what would you say to those fans that still need a bit of work and need to understand that that's still not okay and it has such an adverse effect on people's livelihoods?
Absolutely. I think it's becoming aware of everything that you're saying and how it's affecting somebody. We don't always know the challenges that everybody has in their everyday life, and I think it's just making sure that football is an environment for all of us, and like you say, just trying to become more aware of the effect that some of the things that are said might have on somebody, and just being more diligent with that. Whether that's someone that you're with, maybe calling them out on it and saying, "Do you know what? That's not actually okay. We all need to be better."
Yeah, 100%. I think that's the biggest thing. It's kind of taking action when you actually see something. When I've seen things at Arsenal in the past, I wasn't really sure what to do with it. And I think that's where Her Game 2 is a brilliant campaign that's been set up, because even though there are other organizations and campaigns, I think specifically for sexism in football, that's why Her Game 2 exists. So like I said, if you're listening, if you ever hear anything, please go and report it to Her Game 2 and it can be dealt with accordingly. A couple more questions on the Her Game 2 player ambassador relationship kind of side. As a player ambassador, what is it that you're kind of detailed with doing?
So I'm sure I'll be throughout the season be given a task sheet to work my way through. But I think it's just making sure that I think ideally we would have someone at every football club that can just be either someone that people hopefully might listen to and might take on board some of the things that are trying to be spread, and just being represent the football club and make sure that everybody knows that this is what we believe at this football club, that this game is for everybody, and just trying to be the face of that, really.
Yeah, that's lovely. And how has it been perceived by your kind of colleagues, staff internally with you taking on this role? Did you get any kind of judgment, or was everyone fairly supportive behind your role as an ambassador?
To be honest, it hasn't, because we've not unveiled it, so to speak. It's not something that's actually been brought up, but certainly within this change room, I think there would be nothing but support. I think whilst it isn't happening quick enough in football in general, I do think that we've got a progressive changing room that does realise that things need to change, and they are forward thinking in that respect.
Yeah, and that's it's a really interesting one. One thing I wanted to ask you was you made your debut in 2005, 2006, and I know you said you don't really hear the comments when you're kind of on the pitch, but in terms of the wider context around discrimination and sexism in football, have you seen a change in the landscape from then when you made your debut to now? Would you say, is it something that has improved? Is there still a lot more work to do in your opinion? Where would you say it's at now versus when you first made your debut?
Yeah, that's just a really interesting question, because from the timeline from when I made my debut is probably, it's so much change has happened in the way that news is reported, social media, things like that, that it's very difficult for people to escape that if there is abuse going on, it's everywhere. It's not just happening in one place and then you move on. People are on social media. I'm not on social media myself. Just that, as a personal decision, it wasn't for me really. But it is particularly for young fans. It's part of their everyday life, and it's quite difficult to escape that. So that's one of the biggest changes, I would say, that I've seen since I made my debut, is that it is just, it's everywhere around us. There is no turning off anymore.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the thing. Social media can have its uses, but I think it can also magnify the downsides of it 10x, 100x. So, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
absolutely, and it becomes easier for people to type something awful on a screen and send it, and not be able to perhaps understand the impacts that would make on somebody that's receiving it. You don't get the instant, feeling that if you're saying something to someone's face, and it almost allows them to say awful things without really understanding the impact they make on people.
yeah, I guess they can escape that accountability, like you're saying there, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. And in terms of, so social media is one thing that's obviously accelerated both, yeah, criticisms and praise, but unfortunately, mostly criticism. Is there anything you think from being in the world of football yourself that clubs like Birmingham or governing bodies like the EFL can actually do in terms of governance around trying to eradicate sexism in football? Any initiatives that you think would be helpful?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose you're talking about making sure that we're educating as many people as we can, just so that if you aren't aware, that you'd hope that people would understand what to say and what not to say. But I think the first step is making sure that everyone is educated that that it's not okay to be that way, and I guess perhaps harsher punishments if that is going on, to just almost make a stand and just say that this is not acceptable anymore, and something needs to be actually done about it.
Yeah, and this again, where I can only commend what you're doing, because I think as a football fan myself, when you see players are role models for us as football fans, right? So when you see players like yourselves kind of get involved with an initiative and a campaign like Her Game Too, I do think that will have a knock-on effect on, there'll be a Birmingham City fan who you're their idol and they may have some narrow-minded views. And if they kind of listen to this episode, they hear how you're educating people. I think that's the biggest thing. It's awareness and education, like you say. So if we can encourage more players to become ambassadors, like you said earlier, and just continue to raise awareness, hopefully through those means people will get educated. So yeah, I can only commend you for what you're doing on this as well. Yeah, and final few questions. So we did actually put out some of the ambassadors to ask you a few questions for a Q&A. So the first one, and please don't take offense to this, but someone did ask, is retirement on your mind? and if it is EDI a space that you would like to get to whenever that may be?
Well, So I guess you get to the point in your career where you're certainly closer towards the end than the beginning, I guess. So there's certain things that I think about, right, yeah, maybe it's all of a sudden it's not in 10, 15 years time. You are thinking that, yeah, maybe in the next couple of years that I'm going to have to think about what is next. For the moment, I really enjoy what I do. I try to live in it and give everything wholeheartedly towards what I'm doing. But I'm also, yeah, there's other things I've done. My master's degree in sports directorship is something that hopefully can help me for when I'm finished, and coaching badges as well. So trying not to block too many avenues, trying to give myself the best chance that whatever I decide to go down that I'm qualified for, and try and bulk up that CV for sure. But for the moment, yeah, just enjoying playing at the moment. But yeah, try not to retire me too soon.
Nice one. Now that all sounds great. And I guess you kind of touched on a couple of things here, but the next question was, outside of football and your advocacy work, what are some of your other interests or hobbies? So I know you mentioned about the masters and coaching badges. Are there any other things that you like to get up to outside of football?
Yeah, have a young family keeps you nice and busy anyway, so it's not a huge amount of spare time after that. But yeah, I mean, obviously that's part of one of my hobbies. I love spending time with the family, playing with the kids, and then if there's a bit of time, I play the guitar. So if the opportunity to practice is fewer and further between now, but it's something gives me a lot of joy in my downtime. Just relaxes me a little bit. I have a swing of the golf clubs every now and then, that sort of thing. I'm not particularly good, but it's enjoyable to get out and about. That's pretty much it. I mean, maybe that, going back to your last question, maybe upon retirement, there's a few more things that I can start to take up.
Well, yeah, 100%. I
Paddle,
think you
yeah, we were talking about that today. Paddle's the new craze, isn't it?
Yeah, that is a bit of a new trend at the minute, isn't it? I've not actually played it myself.
I can't. Well, I used to play a little bit of tennis, but yeah, I'm really looking forward to having a bit more time to play paddle. Maybe try skiing. All of those things that you can't really do when playing professional football.
Yeah, so you can basically chance the injuries then once you've gone down
that route. It's not as impactful if you have a bad injury. Yeah.
Nice one. And the final question was, what are your personal and team goals for the new season? Obviously, it's like we said, new chapter for Birmingham this season. But what are some of your personal and the wider team goals?
Yeah, I think the team goal has to be to try and bounce back at the first time of asking, to make sure that we're back in the championship as soon as possible, really. So that's the first and foremost. That's the main goal, really. And from my point of view, is just to help the team as much as I can. Whether that's coming off the bench, whether that's starting games, impacting as many games as I can, scoring as many goals, and trying to be part of a successful team. You get to my age, I think part of the role is trying to help the younger players as well in any way that I can, with the training, with how you deal with yourself off the pitch, those sorts of things. So that's all part of it, and hopefully that all builds to a successful year for the football club.
Lovely stuff. Well, I'm sure it will. And yeah, wish you all the very best of luck with it. And hopefully we'll see Birmingham back in the championship next season. But Lukas, thank you very much for joining. And again, for everyone listening, this is such an inspirational campaign from Her Game Too. Like I said, unfortunately, it was set up out of some disappointing moments, comments that Kaz, Emily, a few of the other co-founders went through, but something positive has come from it. It's raising awareness to tackle discrimination and sexism in football. There's now a dedicated community that are existing and trying to raise awareness. Like I said, there's 73 clubs out of the 92 in the football pyramid that are partnered with Her Game Too. There's teams across the continent getting involved. There's players like Lukas becoming player ambassadors. So all we ask is share the word, share the message. If you're listening to this and anything has resonated with you, please drop the stream a like, subscribe to the channel. That's how we can raise awareness, try and get more players involved, and continue to spread the good word and the good work of Her Game Too. So Lukas, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. Wish you all the best for the new season.
Yes.